Please start recording. We are all ready. Earl, thank you so much for teaching. Let's go.
Cool. Welcome back, class 3. Oh, let me find my translators. Roxana, you're translating? Thank you so much. Anastasia, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Wendy, hey, how's it going? Cool. I would like to start by, I ran into an audio clip that has just been going through my head the last 4 days. So I thought I would curse you with the same audio clip, and hopefully it will be on repeat in your head. Or if it, especially if you get as much out of it as I did. We will put the text in the chat. Does that mean the text is in the chat? Let me check.
Not yet. I will do that right away.
All right, I will stall. And we can read about yellow watermelon. It is a hybrid. All the facts you need. There was a teacher named Lama Marut. I studied with him a lot. Every chapter of the Yoga Sutra I studied with him. All of the chapters of the Pradipika I studied with him. And he, back in the day, was kind of one of the first Dharma podcasters before it was a thing. And so there's a lot of short talks of his. And he's really fun, really engaging, could take Dharma and make it relevant to our daily life. He was a Sanskrit scholar, so his background was very scholarly. And he was just a delightful person to study with. So out of the blue, I just, iTunes decided to open up and play a track, and it was his voice. And so I cut it out, transcribed it, and thought we'd play it. Let's do it.
Thank you all for coming. Let's spend just a moment sort of collecting ourselves and getting ourselves, in the right head space. So just close your eyes for a minute and just try to remember all the things that are going right in your life, the many, many things that are going right in your life, all the people who love you, all the resources that you have available to you, material resources, the prosperity that we enjoy. 2 billion people in our world living on $2 a day or less. You are not one of them. This is an economically hard-hit area in the United States of America, but put it in perspective. Still living a very, very prosperous life. Very well educated, all of us. And very, very fortunate to have the opportunity to have a center like this one, where people can come and study the advanced practices of the spiritual traditions of the East, yoga, and very fortunate to have material like the material we'll be studying over the next couple of days available to us in our own language, the teachers that we have available to us, and just feel grateful. And make a little resolution to not waste the opportunity that we have in this kind of life. These kinds of advantages are not forever. They could go at any time. The window of opportunity is open, but it could close at any time. and to make a strong resolution to do your best to take advantage of the opportunity that you have. Happily, without whining about the little things that are going wrong in life, and concentrating on the many, many advantages that we have and making the best of them.
For those that can't understand the English, thanks for hanging in there. I hope the transcript made sense and conveyed the, I don't know, hope you could catch the humor and straightforward honesty of his teachings. And I love that. It's just been, going through life happily without whining about the little things that are going wrong. And so I started to make a list of the things that I whine about in my day. And here's a short list. Why do I have to cook 3 meals a day? It is so exhausting and relentless. Here was another one. Why is it so difficult to book this ticket to fly around the world? I wish my air conditioning was quieter. It's so loud. I have too many clothes. They don't fit in my drawer anymore. And this is like, maybe I have some complaints that are deeper but most of my complaints are like this. Most of the stuff in my head that spins around is about this level of relevance. And the same teacher, Marut, he shared a story about he was in India often studying. And in India, obviously the level of poverty is extreme. And it's hard to want to give money to everybody. And it's just impossible. And so his way of dealing with that mental discomfort was to just choose one, like choose one person. And kind of every day give to that one person. And then when he would come back to the States, when he would catch himself whining about the trivialities of life, it's such a drag to have to book this ticket to fly to the other side of the world. I have to cook 3 meals a day. It's such an ordeal, such a pain in the ass. He would use that person on the street in India. And being poor in India is, for one, you're really poor. There's not the same social infrastructure to get that support. Like Laura has a bus and a project to feed people and to help them shower, charge their electronics, get by a little bit more easily. And I think in the US, Canada, you can be poor and there can be a possibility of becoming not poor. And in India, it's not like that. It doesn't feel like, you just see people and it's like, wow, you are always going to be poor, living on the street with the the capacity to be economically more mobile. It's just not the same. And so he would meditate on that person that would be begging for food, that he would, or money, that he would try to help. And then every time he had a, real problem that he caught the mind complaining about, it would be, okay, sit down, meditate. And then invite that person living on the street in India and, just explain to them your problems. Let me explain to you why I'm having such a bad day. My clothes don't all fit in my drawers anymore. I've just got too much stuff. My house is cluttered. I've got so much stuff that my house just isn't big enough for all my stuff. And that meditation's been really helpful for me. And it feeds into this theme of Vinaya that we'll talk about in this class or this course. It's not that I'm such a bad person. That's just how the mind works, a samsaric mind. And that is samsara. And so we'll talk about, we'll continue on that theme in this class today. The point of Vinaya is, can we so radically change our experience that the mind just doesn't do that anymore? Like, are those thoughts caused, that whining state of mind? And if they're caused, is there a way to remove that cause and thereby remove the result? And that's the kind of the promise of Vinaya, of like, yeah, that there is a way. We don't have to have a mind like that. And there's a path to get to that result. And that's Vinaya. So let's look at the PPT. This is where we left off. We were talking about the wheel of life. I was gonna do a review. I don't think we will, but let's go ahead like 5 slides. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. To the one that has the verses at the end. Okay, I don't think we talked about this one. Remember how did we get to the wheel of life? Was the instructions of like how to build a retreat center, how to build a monastery. Put this image in the front, and it's a perfect description of how we get into suffering, how we get out of it, all in one image. I don't think we got to the last verse. It says, when the Buddha is like, what's the most valuable thing in the kingdom? A picture of me. and then he gets them to draw. But then he explains the whole wheel of life. And the very end, he's like, and now write these two verses. I don't think we covered them, so let's have a look. Yeah. We talked about one of the things about Vinaya is that it's teachings on karma. Like there's things we can see with our eyes, like a piece of watermelon. We could taste it with our mouth. There's things we need to use logic for that we can't see, like emptiness. And there's things that we need to use trust or faith on. You can't tell if the watermelon is sweet, but if you were foolish enough to trust me and asked me, is it sweet? And I said yes. If you believe I was somebody that wouldn't lie, according to this school of Buddhism, that's as good as tasting it yourself. And that's the third category, and it's related to the workings of karma, where we need a Buddha or someone like a Buddha that is omniscient. And he's to know what to take this up and give that up. That's the essence of ethics, the essence of Vinaya. Do these things, don't do these things. Why? These things will cause you to suffer. These things won't. These things will bring you joy. These things will cause, it's in the Yoga Sutra, things that are painful in their torment. Things that are painful in their torment. Enter the Buddha's teachings. Destroy the forces of the Lord of Death. Those who gently follow this path of self-control. Interesting word. Those who gently follow this path of morality will escape samsara and put an end to pain. And that theme is kind of carried over into this class. We'll see the same idea. So let's look at the next slide, where we have another commentary that we'll use called Ocean of Discipline. So let's just go through the commentaries again, okay? Buddha teaches about Vinaya in the sutras. 500 years later, a guy named Dharmabhadra writes the Vinaya Sutras, expanding on the Buddha's teaching. Dharmabhadra. That gets unpacked 1,000 years later, unfortunately, by another guy named Dharmabhadra. So it's confusing. Okay. This text is Jetsunkalpa. The other Dharmabhadra comments on Jetsunkalpa, who's commenting on the first Dharmabhadra, who's commenting on the Buddha. For those that are following along at home, Jetsunkalpa starts his commentary with this. Om. Delek Sugir Chik. Om Delek Sugir Chik. Om, here, Geshe Michael translated as the actions of body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. Delek is the main word. De refers to happiness. And here, happiness is a very specific, means something very specific. We didn't look at the details, but in that Wheel of Life painting, there's 5 divisions of existence. There's a God type realm existence where everything is awesome. Food just grows out of the ground. You don't have to do anything. People live very long lives. Then there's a human type existence that we're familiar with. Sometimes those are divided into 3. Those are the good rebirth, happy rebirths. That's the day. Like, it's a prayer that people reach those higher rebirths. You're either above that line in the rebirth scheme of things or below it. What's below it? The animals that we can see, that realm of existence, spirits. It's called preta, which kind of means like a ghost realm, and an incredible suffering that goes on in that type of existence. And then 16 or more divisions of the hell realms. So day is like a prayer that people get out of those lower 3 and get into those upper 3, 2 or 3. The lake in day lake, the lake stands for nirvana. You could say nirvana and Buddhahood. So, and the difference being nirvana being the cessation, the stopping of negative thoughts, stopping of negative emotions. Buddhahood being a state of omniscience, built on the wish to get all beings to that state. So Jetson Kopp is saying, Delek Sugir Cheek, like, may everybody achieve Delek. May they have happiness of the higher realms. And then may they achieve goodness. And goodness is it's like a word for nirvana. So the first line is this calling on the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May all beings reach the temporary happiness of a good rebirth, and then ultimate happiness of nirvana, of Buddhahood. And that's his opening line. And then he gets into the explanation of the pratimoksha vows. Pratimoksha, or freedom vows. And so again, freedom is a code word for nirvana. So when you see text, there's it's helpful to start to recognize these words. Freedom, freedom from what? Okay, it means nirvana. Happiness. It's the happiness from a lower rebirth. Okay, so we're talking about Vinaya. We're talking about prati moksha vows, and we'll explain that today. Those vows are freedom because they get us out of suffering. And that's the subject of Vinaya, period. That's it. That's what the Vinaya teaches. That's the motivation for the vows. That's the point of the whole subject of Buddhist ethics. That's the promise of where they bring us. And so, I've been reflecting on that idea, this promise of getting us to freedom. And freedom from what? From samsara. So what is samsara? And when you read the text, you really get a sense of how the Tibetans view samsara. Like, it's a prison. And we don't really even know we're in it. And the imagery they use it's really kind of extreme. Like trapped in a steel cage. Like, imagine being totally blind, totally helpless, and you're locked in this steel cage, and you're like thrown into a river, and that river is just like rushing you over a waterfall. That's the sense of urgency. Like, we need to get out. And to have that, and to see like this life is the best opportunity to get out. And seeing, kind of like Marut was saying, we have the education, the teachings, the teachers, the opportunity. That the window of opportunity is open. Venerable Marut died maybe 3 years ago. His window of opportunity closed early. And so to have this, when we read the Tibetan text, there's like this urgency. Samsara is like this prison, and there's an urgency to get out. And I don't know how well that translates in our culture. Like, in my mind, it's still a little bit like, yeah, samsara, blah, 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 get out. Like, I hear you, yeah, I need to get out. Blah, 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 samsara, I get it. Or the opposite of people getting all freaked out or super intense about it. Like, hearing teachers being really extreme and kind of ranting and raving about getting out so much that it turns people off. Like, so like, what's the happy medium? Like, if we only half believe in samsara, or getting out of samsara, maybe that's not enough to make major changes. But I don't think getting all stressed out works either, not long term. It's great if a teacher lights a fire of motivation. Like, you have to do it now. Practice like your hair is on fire. You have to do it in this life. I think that can be a good kick in the pants, but often I feel like, well, what do you want me to do? I think, okay, great, I agree, but what do you want me to run around like my hair is on fire? Like, I'm just not sure how helpful that is. Or like meditate 25 hours a day. Like, I can't meditate 1 hour. You want me to do 3 a retreat? Like, that's crazy. I'm not, who would do that? It's just unreasonable. So what's the middle ground? I think there needs to be a step-by-step approach, like getting clarity on what samsara is. Because if we don't really know what it is, or if we don't believe in it, or if we don't really know what nirvana is, or we don't believe in it, we're not going to try that hard to get out. And that's reasonable. These things are, take time to study and take time to, determine whether we believe in it or not. Like, nirvana is not something we can see. It would be interesting to figure out if we could logically prove it. Otherwise, we're just taking it on faith. So, it just takes a little bit, I think. I don't think it's reasonable to hear the teachings and then freak out and run around and have our hair on fire. There's a time for that. But I think our approach has to be long-term and inspirational and doable. And so what is that? Like, what do you want me to do? Okay, I get it. I suffer. I get it. Maybe there's this way to get out. Or there's a result that is out. What do I do? And, I come back to a list Geshe Michael gave me, I don't know, in 2003. Do your book. That's the foundation. Check your morality throughout the day. Meditate. You're gonna have to meditate. It's kind of not negotiable. Do some sort of spiritual exercise, so that the prana can move more conducively in the body. Gonna have to study. You're gonna have to, if you want to see emptiness directly, gonna have to understand what it is you're trying to see. And if that's the antidote, there's just really no other option. And his number 5 was, we need to serve people. We need to create the spiritual energy to accomplish those others by serving people. Perhaps for many different reasons. So, with that 5, I think we can have inspiration to have a daily practice and work smarter on those instead of harder. Most people I know work hard enough, but it's very common to hear, feeling like progress isn't fast enough, or I'm not doing enough. I think that's pervasive in our general culture. I think it's common to have that pervasive in our Dharma culture, where more is seen as better, and the people that model that are elevated in status. And I think that's often super toxic. And understandable when you have somebody at the top of an organization like Geshe Michael, who just does not stop. He's relentless for 50 years. We have a role model of someone that has a immense capacity and can maintain a lifestyle that would destroy me. And he can do that with joy. Right? So that kind of has to be our benchmark. Like, if we can't practice with joy, maybe there's a problem. So, what does it mean to work smarter instead of harder? And, and frankly, some people might need to work harder. I think it's more rare. But that's also a possibility. We should leave open the possibility that maybe we could up our game. But I think working smarter is having a better motivation, applying our wisdom, and dedicating. So that's the background. That's some reflections on Vinaya, like being clear on what's the problem that I'm trying to get rid of. And then what's the path that Vinaya is teaching to transcend into another state. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Here you will see the monopoly theme. Hopefully this is a thing in Russian-speaking countries. Thumbs up. You were no Monopoly? Daria, did you play Monopoly as a kid? No. Well, there's the image of the convict. That's the get out of jail free card. Somebody, when I was in prison, sent me a get out of jail free card. And I went and gave it to the prison guards. So in case you're wondering, they don't work like that. He wasn't all that amused. I thought it was pretty funny. So, pratimoksha. What does pratimoksha mean? What's the vow of individual freedom? That's the name of the vows that we're going to study. The vows that lead us to nirvana. They're called individual freedom because if you do them, you will get free of suffering. It's a individual basis, right? If you keep them, you get nirvana. If you don't keep them, You don't get nirvana. If you keep them, you break the chain of what keeps you locked in samsara. Get it? The broken chain? It's cute, right? The freedom vows break the chain that keep you locked in samsara. If you don't keep them, then we're handcuffed in that steel cage, locked in. Don't expect the negative states of mind to disappear on their own. And we could try that. I've tried that. The experiment wasn't great. Like, it was very interesting when I first got arrested and put in prison, because I knew I'd be there for a couple of years, and I hadn't been sentenced yet, but I knew it would be a while. And I had this realization that everything I normally worry about, rent, food, cooking, girlfriends, friends, travel, everything, money, everything that I normally worry about is gone. I don't have to worry about it. Like, for 2 years, I'm just not going to have to worry about the things that plague my mind. And I didn't have a conclusion about that. I had that thought. And then watching my mind just find new things to worry about, finding new things to obsess about, finding new things that caused anxiety. The removal of everything that we normally worry about isn't freedom. That wasn't the path. Didn't work. Let's look at the next slide. We look at the next one. Yeah. Karina, can you change the order of those two slides at some point? This one should go first before the one just before it. So here's a general description of the vows. He says they are, what's this idea of pratimoksha? Individual freedom vows. It is a turning away of hurting others, which basically in Vinaya means the bad deeds related to body and speech. So that's the basis of which we hurt others. Like, I can't really hurt Stevie with my thoughts, right? I could hurt somebody physically. I could hurt them with my words. But unless someone can read my thoughts, I can't hurt somebody with thought. And so the definition is it's turning away from hurting others, which is through body and speech. But Jetson Kappa, there's another line, it says, and its basis. And there's a big discussion about what basis means. And Jetson Kappa is like, look, that's where the mind fits in. The basis of my actions to hurt somebody, physically or verbally, comes from a thought. The thought comes to hurt somebody. then there's the hurting. So here, Tsongkhapa interprets basis as the thought. And now we have all the 10 non-virtues included in pratimoksha. But there's a big debate about that. There's other ways to interpret basis. And we do that out of an attitude of renunciation. That's the reason to take the vows. That's the reason to follow the Buddhist code of ethics. Okay. Why are we refraining from hurting others? Because I'm fed up with suffering. I'm fed up with this roller coaster of life. One moment, I'm a hero. Next moment, I'm an idiot. In the same day, 20 different variations of that. One moment, my organization is super cool. Next week, it's going bankrupt. My friends are awesome. And periodically, I find out they're talking shit behind my back. It's just the way it is. I'm happy. Now I'm sad. Now I'm jealous. Now I'm mad. This world just seems to be defective. My body is defective. My happiness is a roller coaster. And I keep trying to fix it externally. Like, this thing's going bad today, but I'll be able to fix it tomorrow. You know, maybe I'm just not exercising enough, or I need to sleep more, or I need just to find the right combination of vitamins, or if I could just get rid of that one person at work, then my life will straighten out. Or if only I could be in a relationship, or God, if only I could get out of this relationship. It's like this. It's not going to work like that. We're not going to manipulate. We're not going to manipulate the external to find happiness. It's just not going to work. Which doesn't mean like it's hopeless. Doesn't mean run away. Doesn't mean go shoot yourself. Doesn't mean anything like that. But we have to stop and see if the manipulation of the external doesn't work. Is there a way to manipulate the internal that will work? Like, is there a way to be happy that's not dependent on the external? Doesn't depend on the relationship. Doesn't depend on the financial level. And in Vinaya, it's like, yeah, there's nothing that will work except nirvana. And that's the reason for the vows. So that's the definition of Vinaya. That's the emphasis of Vinaya, not hurting others. So that's the definition and the description, general description. Let's go to the previous slide. Here's the outline, yet another outline of Jetsunkapa's book. You can note the Q3 in the bottom right, letting you know you'll be expected to regurgitate this information on your answer key. 6 categories of Vinaya. And this is, we'll just list them and talk about them briefly. But this will be a big topic in the course. First one, the vow's basic nature. Okay. What are vows? What are they made of? Where do they exist? How do they exist? We're going to have a really, really confusing answer to this at the end of class. I'm trying to stall and avoid it. I'm not doing well. We're ahead of schedule for class. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to try to explain this. What is a vow? How does it exist? Where does it exist? The second one is the 8 types. So I think next class we go in deep on that. The next is the description of each. What are the details of each of the sets of vows? Number 4, who can take them? Who can take a vow? So one of the vows is the monk's vows. And the vows related to a monk. So if we ask, well, who can take a monk's vow? Well, you can't take a monk's vow if you are under the age of 19. Okay. They say that that vow won't form until you're old enough and mature enough to know what you're getting into. You have to be able to come to the vows on your own and not be 3 years old and be baptized into ordination. So you have to be an adult to take a monk's or nun's vow. Or to take a monk's vow, you have to be a man. Okay? So there's things like that. We have to follow the process, do the ceremony, meet the requirements, and that's a subject in Jetsunkapa's book. Next one is, how are they lost? So one of the vows is the one-day vow. So how do you lose a one-day vow? Let me check the chat. How do you lose a one-day vow? Yeah, the day is over. For 24 hours, the conclusion of your commitment for your 24-hour vow is over. You don't have that vow anymore. How do you decide when the day is over? Anyone know? Yeah, Roxana is indicating when the sun is up enough that you can see the lines on your hand. When there's enough light outside that you can see the line on your hand, that's the end of the one-day vow. And they're really cool. It's really, it's a beautiful mantra. It's a beautiful way to, it's like living like a monk or nun for a day. Not wearing jewelry, keeping life simple, not eating after midday. So we'll look into those details. Yeah, it's a beautiful practice. I used to do it a lot when I would go to a retreat, and I would find some friends and let's, a 7-day teaching, like, let's do our one-day vows at some point. And then you get up at like 4 a.m. Then it's kind of cool to like walk around in a retreat and you've got this special thing going on, trying to make things, a little bit special, doing things that you wouldn't normally do to bring more awareness to your practice. You're like, it's 3 o'clock and I'm hungry, but it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing something cool today. Okay. So how are they lost? Well, we lose one-day vows after a day. We can lose these vows by dying. Not recommended, but that's another way. They don't carry life to life. We can give them back, I think, is another way. And we can lose some of them by smashing them, by doing something really bad that contradicts the vows. Like if we had so little respect for the vows that we did something really bad, then we can lose them that way. Okay, number 6. Benefits of keeping them. I took a big sidetrack, not big. I went down a small rabbit hole. I Googled discipline is freedom. So Vinaya is discipline. And I Googled discipline is freedom. And it led me to a few athletes like Serena Williams, tennis player, and a marathon runner named Eliud Kipchoge. He is a marathon runner. And he was the first person to run a full marathon in under 2 hours. And he said, discipline is doing what is right. Oh, heads up, those that are doing the behind the scenes, we're going to do a breakout group in about 5 minutes. If you heard that and breakout groups are not your thing, please don't immediately exit the call. Hang in there. Discipline is doing what is right instead of doing what you feel. So this was this marathoner, runner. And it was so cool to relate discipline to Vinaya. Discipline is doing what is right instead of what you feel like doing. He said, you got to stick to your priorities. Like, identify our core values, whether they're the Buddha's values or not, whether they're strictly Vinaya or not. What's our core values in life? Who do we want to be? What do we believe in? And then living those core values. So he says, stick to those priorities, which means we have to identify them first. Identify priorities, stick to them. Don't make excuses. He said, if you decide to do something, stick to it. He said, discipline is not a one-time event. Discipline is like building a muscle. So it's not a thing that we kind of have or don't have. It's a thing we cultivate. It's a thing we develop. And he said, only the disciplined people are really free. If you're undisciplined, you're a slave to your moods, or you're a slave to your mental afflictions. Only the disciplined ones are, and that's what the tennis players said the same, Serena Williams. She's like, once I had discipline, then I had freedom. So that's our discussion in the breakout groups. Discuss this idea. Is discipline freedom? And if so, how so? Is discipline freedom? And if that's true, why is it true? 43. Let's do, I'd like to say 20 minutes so I don't have to answer the last question, but let's say 8 minutes and I'll be brave and see if I can explain it. So we'll come back in 8 minutes. So enjoy the discussion. Is discipline freedom? If so, how so?
Hi, Laura.
Hi, sorry.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Nice painting in the background.
Oh, thanks. Are we waiting on others or is it just the two of us?
I don't know. I had two phones. Maybe they thought I was two people, but just the two of
Okay,
us.
just curious. We can get started.
So is discipline freedom? You want to agree with Earle? And I guess the Vinaya and the Buddha?
Seems like a good side to be on.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a translation of the Yoga Sutra by Barbara Stoller Miller called The Discipline of Freedom.
Mhm.
And I guess that could be taken two ways because I know like sometimes a discipline is like a subject matter, like study a certain discipline of something. But to me, it can also be saying that like there is a form of discipline, you know, that leads to freedom. And that's how I always like understood the title of that text. And I always found that very beautiful and very profound because um, it sort of goes against, I guess, our inclination, which is that discipline takes away freedom, or, you know, it's like, oh, I can't just do whatever I want to do. And that it's going to take some effort on our behalf to get free. So
I like that. I take your stance. I think discipline leads to freedom. My favorite, or my term of the day was liberating stabilizations. You heard this term?
Mm-mm.
It's like, I don't know. It's kind of a term you'll find in like Buddhist prayers. Like one of the treasure qualities is a liberating stabilization. So like a bhumi. And so like the idea I think is, I don't know. I mean, a bhumi is a bodhisattva level, but I think for me was just like, oh, that's what maturity is. Like if I mature, I lead, I find a place where like the things that kept me from freedom just disappear. Like I become an adult, and in theory, I have, I'm not, I've matured past being a teenager. Like I don't act like that anymore. I have the freedom from being a teenager who's living with hormones and all kinds of desires and things like that. So and then in that way, like it's not about discipline. Like discipline brought me there, but then I think you just have it. You just reach a boomy. You can't fall down past the boomy, right? Earl, you reach the boomy, you can't fall under.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Sorry to bust in on your rooms. Please continue.
We were talking about liberating stabilizations and Barbara Stoller Miller's discipline to free. What is it? Discipline to freedom?
Yeah, that's what she calls her translation of the Yoga Sutra, the discipline of freedom.
Oh,
Mhm.
mm,
Which could be taken another way, but
mhm.
so you're saying, Benji, that you need discipline to get to that place, and then you don't need the discipline anymore because you won't lose it? Is that what?
I don't know. Like if you take on a core value, I mean, I hope eventually I invest all that time and energy into something, I would master it. I wouldn't need discipline anymore. It just is a part of me.
Hmm.
Like if I try to make compassion a core value, like it's just who I am. It's not something I even need to try.
Mm. Have you ever had a habit that felt like that? Like it becomes so ingrained you don't need to put effort into that habit?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, I've had things like a habit. I've then had the opposite of the habit come back. Like before doing, recently we've gone on all these trips. Before the trip, my ability to do chores was like, I was on point with my chores. I'd get up, I'd do the chores. It was just ingrained.
Right.
And now I come back and I just like, I
I wonder
can't.
if like brushing our teeth, which is not a good example for me, but like can we have a habit of like brushing our teeth where we just don't think about it anymore? We don't have to be like, oh, I guess I'll do it. And like kind of have to kick our ass into the bathroom to, all right. Like, I don't know, maybe that's an example of habit that gets formed that's effortless.
Or sometimes I think about it as like when things become non-negotiables for us. You know, like you don't even question it. Like, yeah, like I would never leave my house without brushing my teeth. I would never leave my house without, getting dressed. Like you don't think about
Right.
it. Like, could I say that about like my meditation practice? It's just a non-negotiable. And I do think like I'm trying to reflect if there's a habit that I've just like, I don't have to put any more energy into, but I do think that the amount of fire that you have to put towards something can like decrease. And that's at least been my experience, that maybe I still have to
Yeah.
put some effort, but like meditation, like I don't have to convince myself. I don't have to have like a carrot system anymore, even after a period of break.
Yeah. Trying to think of like the most height of my yoga or meditation where the habit was really strong, like 3 retreat. It was pretty non-negotiable, but there was never a time that I didn't have to. That's not true, never, but it was still like needing to put some fuel into that.
I
It
guess I
never
would
became brushing my teeth. It was always like, there was always days where it was like, fuck, I do not want to do this.
maybe those are such physical things. Like I wonder, like qualities inside of your mind have changed. Like where the like love is the immediate choice and it wasn't a problem. That's immediately where your mind went to, when normally the mind would go to complaining or something.
Yeah, where we don't have to cognitively decide whether to complain or not. Is this a good time to complain? No, I shouldn't do that. Question. Could you digitally raise your hand if you would have liked more time in that breakout room? Take a vote. Okay. Not a lot of hands. Now raise your hands if you would like less time in breakout rooms. Okay, cool. How about that? I'd love to invite a couple people to share. What was the insights? And if someone speaks in a language you don't understand, just go to that little globe interpretation thing and we'll get a translation. Magical. Daria, yeah.
I'm always here I always have ideas on something. So my point was, if
Please remember you're being translated.
Karina knows my my speed. So my point was that if discipline is told you from someone, like maybe in school when we were kids or at work, and you don't get what is the reason for it, then it could feel like just overpressure and control and something annoying and heavy, and you don't like it. But if, as we discussed here, if you know what you want to get by this discipline, I don't know, to be energized. So I want to go to sleep earlier. Yeah. If I know what is my goal, and it's my real goal from my own inside, not just marketing from someone from outside. It's really my core value to be energized, and I know I want to do a lot of things, for example, to have it. So my decision to get discipline and go to sleep earlier is my way to freedom.
Yeah.
But if it's just told by someone, yeah, but still I can over control myself also. But is it just a seed, or is it a lack of navanga when you should be also have ahimsa and wisdom to your own self,
Yeah.
compassion, wisdom to yourself, not to also. So you should do it wisely, not to over pressure yourself also.
Yeah.
So this was my final.
Compassionate discipline.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. Someone else want to share? Elena.
Мгм. Добрый день. Спасибо за возможность. Я, как недисциплинированный человек, для меня эта фраза была очень глубокая. И при обсуждении мы решили, что это тот вариант, когда, выполняя строго по шагам все, что нужно, тогда не остается времени на ментальные омрачения, на негативные мысли. И тогда ты просто делаешь то, что положено, и приходишь таким образом к результату. То есть нет отвлечений, и ты не скатываешься в ментальные омрачения. Вот так. Для меня это была очень глубокая фраза, особенно если это от спортсмена, которые люди очень и очень дисциплинированные, и которые достигают все свои результаты именно потому, что они делают все очень последовательно и слушают тренера, слушают учителя. Спасибо.
Yeah. Cool. Great translation. That was awesome. Let's do one more. Evgenia, please share.
Thank you so much. I just want to, maybe summarize or ask the question. So as far as I understand, so the war is like sin
Karina is asking you to slow down a little.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's so easy to do.
I'm a little bit overwhelmed.
I hear
Lots
you.
of insights inside me. So discipline is the part of the war, right? And example of war, I mean, during the day can be that I, for example, should refuse from the coffee. And during the day, I'm just making like a war that today I'm not going to drink coffee. And if I do the war, I don't know, maybe every day, this will leads me to the nirvana, right? I mean, with as well with wisdom and with concentrate meditation. Am I right? Or I understood something in the wrong way?
No, I think that's a great discussion, and that is the idea. We had a discussion in our group about, can we get there completely? Like, do we always need to put some energy into the habit? Or can we reach a place where the habit is just so ingrained we don't think about it anymore? And so I think, yeah, it's exactly that question of to think about with Vinaya or discipline. Do we always need to discipline ourselves? Or at some point, does that just become natural freedom where that is effortless? That was a cool discussion in our group.
Thank you.
Let's look at the PPT. And let's go to the next one. We'll talk about this next class. Next slide. All right, this is a pain in the ass. What is a vow? Lots of different schools have different ideas. We're going to look at two main ideas of what a vow is. The vows are bodily actions of body and speech, and they consist of physical matter. A vow is physical. So there's a group, two schools of thought that say vows are physical. The easiest is the detailist view. And they believe that we take a vow and there's some sort of energy that's passed on that pervades us. It's invisible. You can't touch it, but it's still physical. Like we could see sunlight, but we can't grasp it. It's still physical. The implication or prasangika, who self-proclaim as the highest school, they say the vows exist as form, and that is the object of mental consciousness. So we can have an eye consciousness and an ear consciousness, and they perceive their object. Eye consciousness perceives colors and shapes. Visual objects. Mental consciousness perceives its object, which is thought, as well as the object of all the other sense consciousnesses. They say vows are form, which is the object of the mental consciousness. A couple examples that might make this more clear. If one had the capacity to visualize, and you were to visualize a color and a shape, that is form. They say that's a form. It's mental consciousness perceiving form. And I think maybe they're saying a vow is something like that in some way, or the idea of walking. Is walking a physical thing or a mental thing? This idea of walking. It's kind of hard to say. Like if you say it's physical, like, okay, there's someone walking, physically moving. But we don't really think of walking as form. But it's just an idea. It's kind of like an idea. Someone is walking. Well, do we perceive it with our mind or with our eye? Well, we could catch an instant of walking with our eye, but we kind of need the mind, the mental consciousness to glue together instances of walking to be able to conceive of walking. And so the vows are actions of body and speech which consist of physical matter. That should be pretty clear by now, so let's go to the next slide. Okay, clear as mud, as we say. Different position, different schools. The vows are the continued intention to give up bad deeds and the seeds to have that intention. Okay. So that sounds great, right? I can kind of relate. It's more simple. What's my vow? It's an intention to not do certain things. I think it becomes a little problematic. Like, what happens to my vow when I'm doing those things that I have said I don't want to do? Like, if my vow is a intention not to do something, what happens to my vow when I'm doing that thing? Clearly, I've lost my intention. Like, if my vow is don't steal, and it consists of the intention not to steal, and I'm stealing, what happened to my vow? Does it just stop for a couple minutes while I fill out my income taxes? And then kind of reappear, after I'm done stealing? You know? Or is there like some subliminal background intention that persists? So I think we can understand why these positions could kind of be argued about. If a vow isn't an intention, what happens if I lose that intention? Like, I don't walk around thinking, okay, don't steal, don't steal, don't steal, don't steal, don't kill, don't kill. Where's that intention? Oh, that's a dumb idea. It has to be a physical thing. Oh, okay. Well, what does that mean? If it's physical, where does it live? Let's go to the previous slide. Oh, it's an object of your mental consciousness. It's got form. It's something that is just kind of permeates you somehow. Like the example is like a sesame seed. If you squish a sesame seed, you get oil on your hand. It's not like there's a seed and there's oil in the seed. The oil permeates the seed. And if you squish a sesame seed, then you have oil on your hand. That oil has permeated the seed. It's not like the seed contains oil, it's permeated by it. In the same way, the vows permeate our being as the object of mental consciousness. So, enjoy that. Something to chew on. It's always nice to have some, for me, something to chew on in my brain and to think about. So I enjoy, things like this. Can debate with my friends, but not to forget if that's not helping making me a nicer person, then I should also remember what Marut was talking about at the beginning of class, or what that runner was talking about. Discipline is freedom. the window of opportunity is small. Let's use it. Let's try to stop complaining, stop whining about the insignificant problems. There might be significant problems, but let's not whine about the insignificant ones. And be grateful for the unbelievable life circumstance we have. You know, I fact checked him. There is half the world living on less than $7 a day. Less than what I pay for coffee. 800 million live on less than $2 a day. I am not one of them. I am not one of 2 people living on $7 a day. I have teachings. I have teachers. I have beautiful friends to study with constantly. Constantly. That inspire me, that uplift me, that ask me to teach, that help me. I have beautiful life examples of people that are living the teachings better than me, that I can look up to and seek inspiration in. And to, have ridiculous access to technology. It's unreal. And the education to be able to use it and to, as we ponder what a vow is, not to lose sight of living the life that is what these vows are leading us towards. That's the point. And to have some appreciation for the opportunity and our circumstance to do it. Cool. All right, my friends. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day and some time to sit with this topic, and we'll meet again on Friday, if not sooner. Okay. Speaking of sooner, tomorrow we'll do Practice Club. So you can go to the Yoga Studies Institute website if you don't know what that is. We'll be doing meditation 10:30 in the morning Eastern time, 45-minute, where we're just actually less talk, more do, and sitting in meditation in community, trying to work on single-pointed concentration. Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, translators. You're awesome, amazing. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Roxana, Anastasia, Tanya, Benji, Chrissy, for making this possible. Thank you, Frank. Thank you all for coming. See you on Friday. Yes, everyone, please join the students chat. Again, I remind you to join it to be on time for the class. And next Tuesday, we will have a class 30 minutes later again. And then we go back to 10 a.m. AST. Okay. Thank you all.